Welcome to the Dying Breed Farrier service. I'm Caleb, and we're going to be getting started on Lakota today. Lakota is way overdue for a trim. I've done her in the past, and she kind of got off cycle. We didn't get back to her. And summer hit, and her feet are just cracking and falling apart. So we're going to try to fix that today. We've been going through an extreme heat wave now. I think it was 107 today, and yesterday it was 110, 113. It's just ridiculously hot. We've been getting up at like 5:30 in the morning, working till noon, and then calling it for the day, and then maybe doing something around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. When it gets this hot, we start to see some things with the hooves, especially cracking and breaking and falling apart. Lakota's got an area that's kind of wetter, and then as you can see, the ground's super dry where we're working. And they'll get wet and then dry up, and then they'll start cracking. And the fact that she's a draft and she's massive, and these feet are just huge, and they flare really bad, so then it just accentuates the problem more. So first off, you're going to see that there's not a lot of depth to take. When I say depth, I mean from the bottom. I'm not going to trim a ton of foot off from the bottom. So she's not, quote unquote, that long here. Where we see the length is on the outside of the hoof. The outside of the hoof is really flared out and distorted. And so we're going to try to address that and try to bring that foot back to as natural a shape as possible. And when I say natural shape, we're looking at the white line. So you're going to see these feet are really, really hard. I apologize in this part of the video because something went wrong with my mic. It got turned off, so there's like no sound for this part of the trim. But that foot, like you can see, it's not bad around the frog, but the outsides of those hooves are just super dry and hard. I recommend clients get some moisture on their hooves throughout the summer, and as a whole, that works pretty well. But as I mentioned earlier in the video, with this heat wave that we're having, they're drying out so fast. So the foot of the horse contracts and grows with moisture. So especially in our area where we go from like super wet for like 4 to 6 months out of the year, and then we get super dry for about 4 to 6 months out of the year, we see hooves go up a shoe size or down a shoe size depending on the time of the year, just because of the moisture content of the foot. When it's this hot, that foot contracts daily, especially if it gets super wet in the morning, like a horse that's on irrigated pasture. So the sprinklers are running in the morning and the foot's kind of getting wet and absorbing some of that moisture. And by afternoon, it's 110. And that foot contracts. And so we've had some issues with like shoes where the clinches are hanging because that foot's constantly contracting and growing throughout the day and throughout the week. It's just one of the struggles that we have when we're shoeing horses in the Pacific Northwest, specifically in the Pacific Northwest where I live. We live in an area called Hell's Canyon, and it's called Hell's Canyons for a reason, because it's extremely hot, dry, and miserable from about the end of July to August. And I guess I can't complain too much because I know guys that are shoeing in Phoenix at this time of the year, and they've got it way worse than me. So you'll see there's that massive flare on the outside of that hoof. And you'll see that I'm kind of just 45ing it. So I don't want to thin out the hoof wall in that area. I just want to get rid of that flare. And I'll do the same on this side, kind of to get that foot. I'm just going to kind of 45 it a little bit and then come to the toe. And that's just to get rid of the flare. And in extreme cases like this, where the foot's kind of separating and the flare is moving away, we don't want to thin out the hoof wall to the point that it makes it weak, because by the time we come back, it'll look worse than it does now. But if we leave the thickness of the hoof wall alone, like the natural thickness of the hoof wall, and then come in and 45 up the portion that's separating from the hoof itself, so the hoof wall is separating from the white line, then it'll look better in about 6 to 7 weeks. And you can see it's just really hard, like just super hard. My knife is just struggling to get through that foot. I also probably should have sharpened my knife a little bit that day. Gonna just rasp it a little bit, and then we're gonna take out a little bit of toe here. I'm using my nippers instead of my rasp because this foot is big, and the nippers kind of save me a little bit of time, especially on something this big and this flared out. They'll take it out a little bit faster than my rasp will, and she kind of struggles to stand a little bit. You'll see throughout the video that she struggles with standing. And she is an older horse. She's got some arthritis. She's also a little bit fidgety, always has been. I tend to edit these videos so that you don't see that part. So I might pick this foot up 5 or 6 times. I'll give her a break throughout the trimming process. I had a comment in a previous video and they're like, well, I let him have him back every so often. And it's absolutely, you should let the horse have his foot back every so often, especially an older horse. They just can't stand for that length of time. And it's easier on them if you give them little breaks. So I do, for sure. I let her have her hoof back throughout the trimming process, but I kind of edit that out so you just see the trim part. Now I'm rasping to the mark that I made from the bottom. So I'm getting rid of distortion. But I'm not thinning that hoof wall out beyond that mark. So the hoof wall is the same thickness all the way around. And that's super important. If you thin it out too much, you weaken the hoof wall and it just goes downhill. But if you make your mark from the bottom, you already know what thickness you're shooting for. And then you can look at the top and go, oh, there's the distortion right there. And then we address that. These hooves are just massive, really. I mean, I like drafts. Some guys hate them. I totally get why they don't like doing drafts. They're harder. They're like doing 5 horses in 1 horse. And Lakota's no different than a lot of drafts. She tends to lean on you, and sometimes it's not the easiest, but I just like working on these big horses. They're just a lot of fun. You can look at that hind foot. Look at how flared out and messed up that is. In the next video, we'll be doing the hind feet. So you'll get to see how we address that and clean them up. And she looked way better when we got all done. So that should about do it for this foot. And we're going to move over to the other foot and get started. And we'll have some audio there. So here we go. I mean, look at all that foot that needs to come off. I mean, you can see the toe right here, super flared out. Again, not a lot of depth, but a ton of flare. And then if you look at the bars, especially that lateral bar, the outside bar, look at how it's folded over. And so it's super important that we don't get rid of the bars because they're helping support the hoof, but we do want to straighten them. We do want to define them, and we want to get rid of that folded over bar because that's doing nothing for the horse at this point. So we're going to straighten that bar, get it cleaned up so it helps with the function of the hoof and helps support the hoof. So first off, I'm not even going to try to knife anything out. I'm just going to get that big wonky looking toe out of the way. And you can, if you listen to the nippers, listen to how they struggle to get through that hoof, how dry it is. Definitely this definitely is way longer than is ideal. And you can kind of see how I'm kind of struggling to hold her right there. She really does struggle to hold still. Some of it is she's got a little arthritis. Some of it is the flies were bugging her. I think throughout this video, there was a couple of guys that went jogging by while we were working on her, and she was really interested in what they were doing. So I'm just going to clean up the frog a little bit. I'm going to just open up those commissures. I just want to get any dirt or anything that can be trapped in those commissures cleaned out and open them up so that they can kind of clean out over the next 6 weeks. So that's a perfect example of where I've edited out. a little meltdown. She like pulled the foot away and we had to kind of start over.
Yeah.
Again, I'm using my nippers here a lot more than I probably would in softer, like in a wetter environment, because it's just really hard. And we're just going to clean that up and get that all pulled back. And the thing is, if you look at those heels, see how they've rolled forward. In fact, the heels are almost all the way to the tip of the frog right there. They're not supporting that hoof at all at this point. They're not doing their job. So we need to bring the heels back and bring that whole foot back. Listen to that. You hear that really snap when I do my nippers? That's just how hard they are. When they're really bad, when I can barely get a set of nippers through them, it's like kind of like cutting glass. It shatters. So you can kind of start to see that hoof taking shape. Bringing the heels back. And then we're going to kind of 45 around. You can see how I'm kind of cutting at a little bit of an angle. Just to get rid of all that flare. This horse is actually a really good little horse. I really like her. She's, she might have her little quirks and her little things, but she's actually a super fun little horse to work on. Little. She's not that little. She weighs almost over 2,000 pounds for sure. I'm using a Salcedo knife here. I have to say, I started using Salcedos about 6 months ago, and I am in love with them. Salcedos are like probably one of the best knives I've ever used. They stay sharp longer than any other knife I've had, and they do a great job. And then right here, you can see the green tang. These are Heller XL rasp. It's the only rasp I use. They're 10% wider than regular rasps. Like your average rasp is a little narrower than this. So here I'm just going to shape the foot up a little bit with my rasp, get rid of any sharp edges, and kind of get a nice flow to that hoof. You'll see that hook right there I'm going to address. See how I kind of soften it so the whole foot flows? There aren't really hard angles in nature. We don't really have straight lines in nature. There's usually like a contour to it. Right there I'm working is called the seat of the corn, and I'm just making sure that I get everything out, all the dead hoof that I can out of the bottom of the foot. I probably address this every time I do a draft, and I'm going to address it here. It's like one of the #1 comments. I think that this little saran wrap roll is like the best thing I've ever done. I wrap the hoof with it. It gets the hair out of the way so I can work on it. And it's just super quick and super easy. It's something I always have on my truck. I have, however, gotten some hate on the fact that I'm apparently killing the environment doing this. So when we work as farriers, and I understand that I don't have to, I'm not making excuses. I'm addressing the problem for everyone else. I'm never going to convince that individual who thinks I'm killing the environment that I'm not. But for everyone else, one of the things about being a farrier is what we carry on our trucks every day is what we use. If we buy something for 1 or 2 horses and then carry it for a year, that's inventory and money that sits on our truck that we don't get back. So some of the things that we carry on the truck, we have to, like just in case we need it. But the less of that we do, the more that we carry on the truck that we use every day and we use regularly, that's better for our business. It's just, so if we buy one type of shoe for one horse on our books, that shoe sits on the truck for a year. And that is unfortunately money that we're not getting back. I used to do a lot more of that. before I started my CF and my CJF journey. For everyone, that's the Certified Farrier exam and the Certified Journeyman exam. Before I started that, I was kind of one of those farriers that had a shoe to fit everything, and I had a ton of inventory. Since then, I've learned things. I'm still learning. I'm upping my skills. I'm doing my best to get better and better each day, but I'm learning how to make basically anything that I need to put on a horse. So one of the big things with the CF is that you have to learn shoe modifications like rocker toes and rolled toes and quick clips and extended heels and ladder, all these different types of modifications. The reason those are a big deal is I no longer have to carry a shoe to fit a certain horse or to fix a certain problem. I can literally just pull out whatever shoe I have on the truck and make that shoe fit and do what that horse needs. And then going towards your journeyman, you're learning to make bar shoes and you're learning to make shoes out of just bar stock. So I carry some bar stock on my truck. I can literally measure a foot, take a piece of iron, measure the iron, cut that iron, and make a shoe for that horse right there. If I don't have the right size, I can make the right size. I've become a fanatic, actually, about getting your certification, getting your CF and getting your CJF, because it forces you to learn new skills. And people, well, is it about charging more money? I mean, it's great when you can make more money, but it's not about that. As a whole, it's about giving back to your horse. It's not even about the clients. It's about doing a better job for the horses in your care. That's what it's all about. So I'm kind of starting my journey in that process, but I love everything that I'm learning, and it's been an awesome summer just upping my skills and getting better. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting better. Well, that'll about do it for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe. Let us know what you think in the comments. Had a ton of requests, so without further ado, here is Lakota so everybody can see how pretty she is. And look at her big old yawn there. She's like, I'm feeling so much better now. So she is a Clydesdale. And as you can see, she's kind of a big girl. Well, that'll be the end of the video. We'll catch you all next time.